Something I've noticed in the indie game dev community is there seems to be confusion about how to create your own game animation, so I want to go over my 5-step process that I use to create the animations in my indie game, which is a similar workflow that I've used at studios like Pixar and Industrial Light and Magic. So first, let's talk about planning. You need to understand who your character is, what their personality is, and what their goal is for the specific action. So let's talk about the character for a minute here. Animators are actors, right? We don't just make characters move, we make characters move with intention, right? We're trying to get the audience or the player to connect with the character, so you gotta know who your character is. And there are a few things you can look at. So one is their personality, and what's their default emotional state. Seamus is kind of like a more happy-go-lucky type character, so he's more cheerful. He's also lighter. You always want to focus on the character's weight, because that will really inform the timing and the spacing, like how heavy a character is, how long they should hold in these poses, things like that. And then you need to focus on their default posing rules. How does the character stand in a way that makes them unique compared to other characters? So for Seamus, because he's a plant, I like to emphasize that plant-like aspect by building a lot of C shapes in him, a lot of curves. I'll even curl his toes up. And also things like I'll add a lot of overlap and overshoots instead of easing in, because the overshoots make him feel more like a plant flopping in like the breeze or something, you know what I mean? So that's like a very specific design choice that I make for him as a character, which I wouldn't do for other ones. I also think it's important to show different sides of the personality of your character in different actions, just so they don't have one note and they don't feel the same all the time. So for Seamus, I mix it up. Sometimes it's more plant-like, like the cartwheel is more plant-like. I stretch him, I really focus on making him feel kind of cute and plant-like here. But then other animations like this attack, this is meant to feel more like he's a trained hunter, which is also what he is. And there's other ones where I try and make him feel like a K-pop idol. So, I mix it up. If your character differs with their personality and the actions, they'll have more depth to them and will be more interesting to watch. Once you have a sense of who your character is and how they should move, you want to plan out the actual action. And you can do this for a few different ways. One of them is by finding video reference online. This is super helpful, especially if it's like something mechanically hard to perform yourself. Like, no way I'm doing this backflip, I'm gonna find someone who is skilled and can do backflip, and I'll animate to that. Well, you can also shoot video reference of yourself. I will often stitch video reference together too. Like, I'll use the complicated part from an actual stunt performer, but then I'll film myself in the settle so that my character settles back to the proper idle pose, things like that. You can kind of stitch it together to make the mechanics cohesive. Another way you can also do is by drawing little thumbnails, and these are like little stick figure drawings. They don't have to be good. It's more for you to explore posing ideas, like what if you flip the spine this way, or what if you squash the character this way, or how do you stretch them here, things like that. You're really focusing on contrast, simple lines of action, just to see if the energy flows well on static piece of paper with simple gesture drawings, and it'll probably look good in 3D animation. Once you've planned out your shot, then you need to do what we call blocking. This is the second phase of animation, and this is your first pass of animation with the bare minimum amount of poses you need in order to communicate the action. So you're going to want to have all your key poses, and the key poses tell the story and the action, and you're going to need your breakdown poses, which tell how the action actually performs. So here's a blocking pass that I did for this headbutt animation, and here's the polish next to it. You can see how the polish has a lot more overlap and things like that, but I don't want to get to that phase because this first pass is really to validate the idea and to really lock down your timing and your spacing, because that's more important early on. You don't want to add too many details, because then you might have to throw them all out if you're like, oh wow, I actually need to hold this anticipation pose here like 4 frames more. Well, now it's like, ugh, you got a bunch of the keys you got to move around. Just don't do it to yourself. Keep your blocking loose, do the bare amount of poses you need in order for you to understand action. If you can flip through the key in your timeline and you're like, yeah, I understand what's happening, you're good to go. It's also worth noting that how you create the poses for your blocking can differ. There are typically 3 different workflows you can use. So one of them is called straight ahead, and that's, well, you make the pose and you go straight ahead to the next important pose and the next important pose. You're going through from the beginning to end, making all your key poses and your breakdown poses. There's another version, which is pose to pose, and this focuses on the key storytelling poses, and you make all those first, and then you go in and add the breakdowns in between. So you're working really in any order because you're focusing on the poses rather than than the poses in order. Then the third way you can block out your shot, which is my personal favorite, is called the layered method, and this is where you animate whatever is leading the action, whatever holds the most weight. So typically it's the body and the feet, but it can depend on the actual action that you're animating. And you get that feeling really good first. You get the weight down and you set a lot more keys, and it's just on those certain parts of the body. Once that weight and the energy is feeling good, then you go to the next important part. So say like the spine, then you add the head, then you add the arms, and you layer in all the different parts of the body that way. This is not great for beginners. It gets really confusing because you have to be familiar with the graph editor, and you kind of need to have a solid understanding of timing and spacing because you're animating weight first. I definitely recommend you try it, but not on your first try if you're really new to 3D animation. And then after you have your blocking, you can move on to the third step, which is implementation of your blocking in-game. Super, super important to validate your game animations in-game early on because you need to see how it feels on the controller, right? That's what you're shipping to. So you need to see if it's going to work. And what I do is I always like to check, is the timing good? Is it slow? Is it sluggish? Is it too fast? Are the poses reading? Like, is this pose going through too quickly so there's not enough power to it? You know, things like that. For game animation, you do want to pose your characters all in 3D so that it works from any angle because the player has control of the camera, right? But I do try and favor the back camera where the player sees most of the time. So I'll check and look at the silhouette of my character in game and I'm like, are these poses reading? Are they clear? Should I move the arm out further? Things like that. So that's why you want your blocking to be as few poses as possible, because if you have too many poses and it's like you got all this extra work to do, don't do it to yourself. That's what you want to check when you're in game. And another very important part is you want to focus on the technical animation too. The easiest thing to do is just to focus on your blending. So depending on how long your blends are and the interpolation between the blends, you can have really different feel to the actual game animations. So just for an example, I'm going to show you Seamus's dodge animation. At first, this is how it looks by default. Pretty snappy and responsive. That's nice. Yes, it is the animation, but it is also how it is in game. So you see the blend time, I've made it shorter. And I've also done it so that it favors in fast out and does a nice ease in to my animation instead of playing like the cycle or whatever the animation is before. And the reason for that is because in my animations, you'll see he very quickly gets into his anticipation pose. He's literally in it in 2 frames. So if I make the blend time to favor the playing the beginning of this animation, this anticipation pose will read better. And you'll see if I leave it as default, let me just make it linear. You're going to see that the animation won't look as good. It won't feel as good. See how it doesn't reach that deep anticipation pose because it's blending through it too quickly? And I can make this even more extreme just to illustrate it further. Let's make it half a second. It's going to look super bad. You would never want to do this, but just to show you, you can get a way different feel with your animations if you edit the blend times and the blend spacing through the interpolation. So that's why you want to test whatever your action is and make sure that you change the blending and the blend time to suit the responsiveness and the feel that you're going on your controller, and it will depend per action. So that's why, again, you want to get your blocking pass in as soon as you can, because you want to test these settings and make sure your controller is getting all the info that it needs so that you validate your idea. Once you have your list of notes, then you go into the next phase, which is spline. And this is where you go and you add more details and you address all the notes in your blocking. Now, this is where I'll actually go and like add more overlap, clean up the arcs, things like that. Make sure it's very fluid animation because I've already figured out kind of the ballpark of where the timing and the spacing should be. So then I can go in with all the other 12 principles of animation and make the animation good. So it's a very similar process. Add more details, get that facial animation in there, get more squash and stretch, exaggerate things as you need, and then you export it again, verify the spline is working, and then tweak any other things you need to do in the last phase, which is what we call polish. Now, this is where you really want to spend the time to make the animation shine. Things like when the feet pick up, you want to make sure they peel up off the ground along an arc and they're not locked on the ground. Like you'll have some weight shifts, so you show the feet moving a little bit, things like that. Find your spacing or find your timing. Basically, just make the animation as good as you can because you already know that the timing and the spacing is good. It works well on the controller. Now just make it shine. So those are the 5 steps that you want to do to create game animations. And if you want to see this in practice, I actually do have a tutorial on this where I recorded myself creating some animation, so it's pretty long, but it's very in-depth because it goes through my process as I talk aloud. So definitely check that out if you want to see it in action. And if you found this video helpful, feel free to share it with any of your friends who feel like they may benefit from this video. And yeah, that's all I got for you today. I'll catch you next one.